Welcome to Heart on the Table, a tarot-inspired podcast for mothers, healers, and humans in the messy middle of becoming.
Two therapists, two moms, one card at a time.
Every other week, we pull a tarot or oracle card
and explore its symbolism through the lenses of trauma healing, attachment theory, motherhood, and intuitive wisdom.
Together, we weave our clinical therapy knowledge
with personal connections to motherhood, spirituality, magic, and womanhood.
Reflecting on what it means to mother yourself and others
across timelines, triggers, and transformations.
I'm Bree Levitt, licensed clinical social worker.
And I'm Miranda Peterson, licensed clinical social worker.
It's part sacred space,
part cozy couch chat.
Expect laughter, insight, and a whole lot of heart. Welcome back to Heart on the Table. Thanks so much for listening to our last episode with Rhiannon. If you had the chance to listen, really enjoyed kind of having the opportunity to allow her to share her infertility story. And it seems like it resonated with a lot of you. We've had a lot of downloads and a lot of listens. And through Rhiannon, I've seen some good just feedback on that episode.
So today we're going to kind of jump back into our tarot journey. And the next card we'll be talking about today is the Justice card. It is card number 11, which is interesting, actually, now that I think about it. I was just going to dive into like the symbolism. Mm-hmm. But there are two pillars on this card on either side of this individual, and so the fact that this is 11 and there are two pillars that, I guess maybe I'm reading into it, but
no, you're not reading into it, because in my research on this episode there was some of that kind of symbolism. Like it is card number 11, and it was like I think that there is some, kind of throwback in the imagery of this card to, I think it's the Magician and the High Priestess.
Yes.
And I think the Magician is card number 2? Yeah, because it's the Fool.
The Fool 0.
Fool 0.
Mm-hmm. And then High Priestess is 2.
Yeah, so it was like 1 + 1 = 2, and then 1, like it brings us back to the Magician. And there's some similarities between like the way that the woman in this card, like her sword is pointed upward, similar to the Magician as well. There's like some numerology symbolism there.
I was just looking up the numerology of 11. It's a master number.
Oh.
That signifies high intuition, spiritual illumination, and visionary insight.
Okay, I like visionary insight. That feels applicable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There is a little note here that says that people that walk this path are meant to learn how to trust their inner voice and guide others without self-doubt, which I think we can get into a little bit later.
Yes.
When we talk about like the in-depth meaning of justice is maybe not what I thought it was when we talked about doing this card. So that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Did you say that was like a numerology meaning in the meaning 11? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. Now, like I'm making that connection.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I knew what you said, but it didn't land for me until I asked my follow-up question. Okay, that is interesting that 11 has that like same meaning that we've been discussing prior to hitting record. Mm-hmm.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, wait, that's exactly what we've been talking about.
I'm making my own personal connection because the date of my birthday is 11.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well, and
thinking about that in context to myself.
Yeah, and my therapy practice is 11/11 too. So interesting. Do we want to go down just some of the imagery of what we kind of see in this card?
So we kind of already talked about the two pillars on either side of this card. A little side note to like it acting as I think like maybe a gateway or like a portal to what we're going to get into a little bit, which is like that light and dark side, or like the experience versus like the shadow of the experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's just that duality piece to, I think, almost every card that we've talked about, the balance.
Yes.
Everything hangs in a balance, and it's maybe not always a 50-50 balance, but like a spectrum of a balance. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things I think you'd already mentioned was the upright sword in this card.
Which, do you remember what in the magician, like the pointing of the upright? I think the pointing of the upright was like maintaining connection to, like, is it the spiritual piece or is it like the knowledge piece? I don't remember.
I think for the magician, what I remember about the up and the down, right? Because the magician has one arm up and one arm down.
Mm-hmm.
But like the illumination piece of like the as above, so below. So like as things are happening in context of like your reality, they're also happening within you, right? Like I think we tend to forget a lot of the time that we have inner worlds because we're so used to existing in the outer world. Like we're so used to our existence as it, concerns society or other people or our relationships that we often forget that we have a very intense inner world happening, right? Like our inner world gets ignored, or like our relationship with ourselves gets ignored in favor of things that we can see or touch or, experience with the senses on the outside.
That leads me to thinking that something that we talk about often on this podcast too, which is like, we just live in a world that keeps us very disconnected from our internal experience as well. Mm-hmm. I was reading something this morning on Threads that was just, I've been trying to stay off of Threads because a lot of doom and gloom, like climate change kind of doom and gloom. Mm-hmm. But there was somebody on there that was just in that, right? Like doom and gloom. What is going to be left for my children, my grandchildren, it just feels so bad. And I think at the end of their post, they were just like, how is everyone continuing to just go along, right? And act like nothing is happening. Yeah. And somebody said in response to that, like, well, that is what the forces that be, right? The forces in the external world want us to believe is that we're helpless and that there's nothing that we can do, and so that we just kind of roll over, right? I think maintaining connection to our internal world is the point, right? Like it is the whole point of continuing on and connecting to like the internal part of ourselves that experiences like the magic of the external. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like letting it land that like it matters and it's still something worth fighting for. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I've personally noticed myself, because I haven't been reading the news as much or haven't been on my phone as much, because there's just so many other things that require my attention throughout the day, which is fine. Like there's balance to it, right? Being informed and in the know, and also knowing when it's too much. Mm-hmm. I will say, I don't know that I've been like any more happier not reading the news, but I tend to notice that when I do look at the news or read the news or am in the know with what's happening at large, like it does tend to feel that doomy and gloomy.
Feels so heavy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you also are faced with the fact that like, what control do you have over any of that that's happening?
Truly.
We don't really have control over anything in our lives. Coming to terms with that is really hard. But I try to remind myself, and I try to remind my husband too, that like we only have control over our own selves, our own experiences, and maybe even the influence that we have in like our immediate families. Mm-hmm. Or being kind to a stranger, like,
yes,
out and about. Like, I think I'm a believer that, you do good things for other people and it will come back to you. Mm-hmm. In any other way, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
all of this connects back to this card, I feel like. Some of the other like symbolism here, I see like it's a very regal, I do believe it is a woman from the reading that I did, but it's a very androgynous woman, which most of the characters most of them are in the tarot. There's some that are very like they embody female or they embody male, but some are like a lot of the ones where it's not like the Empress or the Emperor. The ones that don't directly call out that this is a like female or male kind of archetype like are more androgynous, I would say. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's very regal, like we're in a very regal red robe, the two pillars. Similar to the High Priestess, there's the, what do you want to call that? Like behind, what is that? like a sheet, but not a sheet. It's like something.
Like a tapestry?
A tapestry, yes. Like it's just a bed sheet. There's like a red tapestry that's kind of blocking out what seems to be some like yellow in the background, which is also similar to like a callback to the magician, I would say. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we've talked about like the color symbology before.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's kind of, like you can peek into the background and the background is yellow.
Yeah.
I think calls to like just that, not restraint, but just remembering. I think red is very much symbolism, like symbolic of passion or of vigor or of like just vitality or and I think yellow is very much like the illumination piece, right? Like the keeping in mind that there are probably things happening in the background that we may not understand.
Yeah.
Or maybe being curious about the deeper meaning behind things. I also noticed maybe some of that same symbolism with there's one foot peeking out.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
And it's the right foot, right? Like I wonder if there's any symbolism there with it being the right foot. Because right versus left, right is typically more like doing energy, whereas like left is more like being energy. And the symbolic color of white being, I think, like clarity or like that. I think it's like that spirituality piece, like the seeing straight through, the clarity of choices that aren't impacted by like our emotions or our thoughts or things that we may experience at war within ourselves.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of different reminders in this card. The background, the shoe, and even like the upright sword of like remembering to cut through kind of like the veil or the facade, right? Like the mask, like cutting through to the deeper meaning or the heart of whatever it is that we're experiencing.
Yeah. There was something that I was reading about in my studying up on this card that was talking about how in the tarot picture, at least in the common deck that is used today in modern times, that there's no blindfold on the person that we see sitting here. Oh, the Roman goddess of justice. So the Latin word for justice is justitia, and the origin of that is the Roman goddess of justice. And the Roman goddess of justice is always pictured as very similar to what we see on the tarot picture. Like she has the, what are those weighted things called?
Scales?
The scales. Jesus. The sword. All of it's very similar, except for she is wearing a blindfold. And I was reading that the tarot very intentionally has kind of painted this picture without a blindfold because it is important for us to kind of see our past and learn our past in order to bring justice into our life intentionally today. And I liked that. There's just something about that for me with this being like the midway point through the major arcana story, that like we have to be connected to all that has happened to be intentional about making choices moving forward in our life. And we do that, right? Justice is not something that just happens to us. Like it is something that we have to intentionally bring upon ourselves. So yeah, I liked the choice to not have a blindfold on the character here in the tarot. And when you initially think of justice, like I think it's very common when we encounter the justice card, or just when we think about justice, like here in Western culture, right? Like my brain immediately goes to like the legal system, or
which is entire, like when I think of, there's also a part of me when I think of the legal system that I think flawed.
Absolutely.
So
right, which it's just funny that like I'm like, oh, justice, like the legal system, this is legal, or we're thinking about like, oh, like you've been wrong. It's like how is justice going to happen to you, right? Or how are you going to get justice? versus everything that we is really more about like how we intentionally bring justice upon ourselves and upon our own life. Because coming back to like so much, there's just almost everything in life is outside of our control except for our own really internal experience and how we choose to respond to the things that happen to us. Which it's not to say that it's an easy choice often to, choose something very intentionally, or, there's sometimes privilege in being able to choose how we respond to, right? Like, I think that's always an important call out. But like our internal experience is the one thing that we can, sometimes intentionally use. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think too, like if we're talking about this in the context of individual experience, right? And maybe we all live in different worlds because that is just the experience of each individual reality.
Yeah.
But I think when we tie this back to our own individual experience and really get down to like, what about life that we value, right? Like, because everybody has different values. What I value even today is not the same thing that I valued even 5 years ago, right? Like, and those are constantly changing and they're not stagnant. And I think when it comes down to it, like, we tend to seek justice for things that do or don't align with our own values, right? But I think in the context of the individual experience, that typically splits our maybe psyche into two. Right? All the parts of ourselves that we tend to favor or adore because of XYZ, right? Like maybe how we were raised or the external society experience at large shapes those aspects of ourselves, right? Like the selflessness, for example, like that's maybe something that was shaped at a young age and or is valued in a larger context, right?
Yeah.
So then we split that part of ourselves, and so selfless is seen as a better character. I guess I'm kind of grasping for words, but like selflessness versus selfishness, like, right? We all tend to have both of those things within ourselves, or the capacity for both of those things, right? And it gets split off because it's valued in
extremes.
Yeah. Like, but we forget that it's also okay to be selfish, right? Like in some capacity or another. And so recognizing that in itself, that quality within ourselves tips the scales, right? So justice isn't always in favor of maybe what we are hoping to amplify or showcase about ourselves, but more so about like, what is the other side to that, the like shadow side to that we have split ourselves off from, that we're not honoring or acknowledging or letting come to the surface, right?
Yeah.
Which tends to, if you push that so far underneath the surface, right, that you don't want it to come up and you don't want people to see that part of you, it tends to show up anyways.
Yeah.
It tends to show up when you least expect it. It tends to show up when it's not convenient. So I think when we ask ourselves what's important to us or what we value, I think it's equally important that we entertain the opposite of those things too.
Yes, I like that point. Even the things that we may kind of acknowledge that like we don't like about ourselves too, right? Like a whole thing about the justice card too is like having understanding for how those things even came to be, right? So in your example of talking about like, society kind of favors selflessness over selfishness. So if we have this part of ourselves that, we deem as selfish and, we also identify like, oh, it's bad to be selfish, right? Because that's what society has told us. Well, we bury that part down and we develop sort of like a disdain for it instead of recognizing like it too belongs, right? And at one point, if there's this part of us that we deem as selfish, well, that was born out of some need, right? And also like maybe it's not bad, maybe it's not bad to sometimes like have a need to favor ourselves in our own internal experience, right? And like how much, what's the word I'm looking for? How much conflict, internal conflict comes from us really trying to disconnect from that part that just is there, right? Yeah. It's making me think about like, there's just so much internal conflict, I think, for everyone, right? Like it's normal in life to have internal conflict about, maybe things that have happened in the past or some parts of our stories and our upbringings or whatever it may be that like we really don't like. When I say we really don't like, right? Like whether it was something that we did versus like something that was acted upon us, right? Like whether it was trauma that was created for us or grief or sorrow or regret or whatever it may be. But like part of justice is also kind of sitting with those parts of our story and recognizing like the humanity there, having understanding for what has happened in our life. And one of the books I was reading was talking about like seeing how everything that happened or has happened to us outside of like really, horrible trauma, right? At one point made sense. Right. I think we're talking more about like things that we have maybe done or acted upon. I feel like I just read like an awful news article this morning about child abuse. So that's at like the top of my head where I'm like, not that. We're really talking about just like internal world. But just seeing at some point in our life the things that we did, they made sense, or the parts of ourselves that we don't like, or we have some disdain for, or we have a hard time being compassionate toward. At one point or at some point in our life made sense. Like we have to honor those parts of ourselves as well if we want to figure out how we make change happen.
I really like what you said about like you referred it to a story, right? Like the story of us. We all have our own story. And in the external world, all of these stories are interacting with each other. And I think what comes up a lot, at least in my experience, is everybody has their own thoughts and feelings about situations that happen, and those are usually rarely ever about the other people involved, right? Like our own thoughts, experiences, and emotions are usually just a reflection of our inner world, right? Of what's happening for us. So if we are, for example, the book that I'm reading right now is about like parent-child relationships.
Yeah.
And it's called Motherhood, Facing and Finding Yourself.
Okay.
By Lisa Marciano. But it does like mention a quote by C.G. Jung, but it says if there is something about the child that irritates us within, that just irritates us at large, it's often not something that needs to be changed within the child, but more often than not something that needs to be changed within ourselves. Like every situation that happens, whether it be, that you experience rejection or fear or even like happiness, right? Like all of those things are just a reflection of some earlier experience that we had, right?
Yeah.
We don't have control over what anybody else does or says or thinks or feels in this world. We only have control over what we think and feel. And oftentimes some of those like primal experiences, right, of rejection or of sadness or of happiness, they stem from something much, much deeper.
Yeah.
Right? And something that maybe the more it comes up and the more often that it is, I wouldn't say, for lack of a better word, like, I don't know that triggered's the right word, but the more often this experience comes up, right, the maybe the louder that it gets, right, because it's trying to express an underlying need.
Yeah.
That maybe we are not ready to face or recognize or say that we need, right? I think a lot of individuals that I work with really kind of struggle with knowing even what it is that they need.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think we all do to some extent because we're out in the world performing. We're out in the world trying to showcase our best foot forward, so to speak, without realizing that a lot is happening underneath the surface. Maybe we don't even know what we need because we haven't slowed down enough to recognize that we have a need.
Mm-hmm. Or we've been so focused on like others' needs or what others need from us.
And maybe sometimes too, like other people get their own needs met by, maladaptive behaviors or patterns or maladaptive coping, right? Like I think about that in terms of maybe like intergenerational experiences, right?
Yeah.
Like meeting the needs of different generations because that's how it's always been done. But really, like, we're only responsible for meeting our own needs or for recognizing what our own needs are.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to, that shadow part of us. Our needs are always changing. Our values are always changing. Nothing stays constant. And I think the harder maybe that we try to hold on to some of those parts of ourselves, maybe the more stuck we get.
Yeah. Like you talking about some of that as well brings me back like to this quote that I think it's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And the quote that was in one of the books I was reading was just nothing can save you but yourself. And like, I think people spend so much time waiting for the world around them to kind of allow, how do I want to put this? Because you're talking about like, it's important for us to recognize what our needs are or to, actually slow down or do the therapy process and recognize that like it's okay that we have needs and that it's okay that we ask for them to be met. But I think people spend a lot of time waiting for the world around them to just meet those underlying needs. Versus, and I think that's because that's how people are socialized. Well, if you were socialized to meet other people's needs, well, then you're waiting around for someone to meet yours, right? Versus ever kind of taking the time or having the privilege to take the time to identify or uncover and discover what those needs even are, right? Like there's, again, that like conflict with our internal world and outer world. Why can't people just see? Why can't people just do, right? Why was I in a family system that this was the outcome? But we have to, again, accept those parts of our stories and recognize that, especially as adults, that it is like no one's coming to save us. Like I think that on the opposite side of that yes, so much healing happens within relationship. I think it's an important part of any healing process is the relational piece. But no one is coming to save us. So what does that mean for us in our healing journeys, right? If you really sit with and internalize that no one can save you but yourself, what choices do you then have to wake up and realize that you have to make? And I think that can be a powerful realization and can really bring us into our own power when we can, move past the discomfort of recognizing like it is on us. Right? To see the past and to figure out how we respond to the things that have happened to us and how we choose to move forward. It is on us, Yeah.
I think too, like you were saying, the image that I got in my head when you were talking about waking up to that inner authority, it was just kind of like a puzzle, right? Like you're talking about waiting for the universe and the like circumstances to just fall into place, but realizing that we have the capacity to just rearrange the entire puzzle.
Yeah. There may be discomfort in that. People may not like, right? Like the relationships in our life may not like when they notice that we're changing or we're beginning to quote unquote be selfish and say no or prioritize our needs sometimes. But just because the world around us may cause conflict doesn't mean that we're wrong.
And the fact that like pieces may no longer fit where they used to fit either. Like, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I get this image of like carving marble or something, right? Like carving, like we chip off parts of ourselves that no longer are seen as worthy. In a larger sense, not to say that they aren't, but like, the more that you chip away, the less of you there is. And it's like carving marble. You can't put marble back.
Yeah.
Like, it's once it's gone, it's gone. But like the rigidity in that, right? And the fact that people are so uncomfortable with change. Maybe we are uncomfortable with change.
Mm-hmm.
And really just kind of assessing the way that we think about ourselves, right? Like we're not marble to just keep chipping away at, because
Yeah.
at the end of that, there's nothing left.
Right.
You keep chipping away at the
core.
yeah, and you kind of lose yourself along the way, but realizing that all of those pieces,
Yeah.
that there are like ugly parts or hideous parts of ourselves that
Mm-hmm.
we would prefer to cut off, but they're actually really vital.
Yeah.
You know, we can't
Mm-hmm.
have one without the other.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that we can just choose one without the other leads a very unbalanced life and a very unbalanced
Right.
experience.
Well, and so the book that I pulled this from, she was just referencing an old Irish tale, which I think is okay to reference the old Irish tale that she's talking about here. And even if not, like the book is Tarot for Change by Jessica Dorr. That's where this is coming from. But she just says, she talks about this old Irish tale of 5 sons who stop at a well while traveling. They're thirsty, but the well is guarded by an old woman whom is described as just variously unwholesome, warped, crooked shins, garnished with massive ankles, a pair of capacious shovels, knotty knees, and livid nails. And it says, the woman says she will gladly give the young men water, but only if they give her a kiss. And so one by one, the men recoil in disgust, and they opt for dehydration over having to make contact with something they see as hideous until one of the sons makes his request for water. And when asked for a kiss, he eagerly says yes. And not only that, agrees to lie down. And she says, which I'm pretty sure means that he's open to having sex with her. So he's fully accepted this grotesque woman, right? He's like, oh, I will not only kiss you, like I am willing to have intercourse with you. He leans in for the kiss. And when his lips touch hers, she transforms into a woman who meets the beauty standards of that day and place. And it's later discovered that she is royal rule. She just goes on to talk about in her chapter on justice that like we are kind of punishing ourselves when we just continue to push against and not accept the parts of ourselves that we may find grotesque or, again, ugly, right? Like until we have to learn to have compassion for those parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Or else like we are just endlessly punishing ourselves. And then coming back to the justice card, like there will never be balance, right? The last thing she said in this chapter was just kind of highlighting the importance that we do not have to love or even like ourselves to be kind to ourselves. Like the whole kind of what leads up to her talking about, or what leads up to that sentence is her just talking about like, when we are kind to ourselves, something follows that, right? Like something changes in our brain when we can just try to be compassionate to ourselves, regardless. Like we do not have to like ourselves, and maybe liking ourselves or, having self-love, self-acceptance, self-kindness can come from the practice of just learning how to be compassionate. Mm-hmm. And two, I was just saying, like, how often are we compassionate or kind to people that we don't like in our day-to-day? And why can we not just do that internally? But she was talking in her chapter about justice too, how there's so many old like folk tales and tales of similar things. Like in those tales and in those stories, the people who are repulsed by the ugly, or what's a good word? The grotesque, right? Like those people are always punished, and sometimes severely so, right? It is the people who are willing to accept ugly or accept grotesque or accept whatever it is that may, for the time just be seen as ugly. It's the people who are working to accept those things and meet them with kindness who are often rewarded. It's like, what does that mean in relation to ourselves and our own mental health and our own healing journeys? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do we push against that we should actually be practicing to accept?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think it's easier too when you like are able to interact with the world from the frame of mind that this person, maybe there was an experience where like anger was the primary feeling of any interaction, and just realizing that that person's anger probably stems from something else, right? Their anger is probably less so about whatever it was that happened and more so about something that came up for them.
Yeah.
Internally, right? And so recognizing when that comes up for ourselves, right? Like when you feel angry about something, it's probably less so about the situation and more so about, you know, some unmet need or some prior experience that hasn't been processed or recognized yet.
Yeah.
I think too, just about the symbology in that, did you say it was an Irish tale? Irish tale. That like the water symbolizes like a like almost like a vital life or a wholeness life, and to have to go through, you know, there's something guarding the water, right? There's some aspect of that experience that's guarding the water. In the story, it's this old woman who is unattractive and unappealing, right? And you have to be able to accept that or embrace that in order to access the wholeness or the vitality. And for the other four who didn't, right? For the other four who denied that acceptance or that embrace, like they chose dehydration, which symbolically, I think, you know, becoming a carcass of oneself, right?
Yeah.
Because you're only living a one-sided experience instead of accepting the shadow side or the other half.
Yeah.
And how many of us are living one-sided experiences?
Right. Or living with so much internal conflict. Or like depriving ourselves of life because we struggle so much to accept the parts of ourselves that, you know, like we define as ugly, right? Like I work with so many clients where I'm like, I wish you could just see what I see in you, you know, because I don't see any of my clients that way. And so many of them struggle to see that within themselves. And I'm like, if you could get there, if you could express that compassion to yourselves and feel that within yourself, like, wow, what would change?
I think at any given point, right, coming into contact with these parts of ourselves is an opportunity for change, is a threshold for change, right? Like, will we allow ourselves to be changed?
Yeah.
One of the tales or just the symbolic images that comes up in this book that I'm reading is the image of a well. And the well is like a threshold to the unknown, right? Like,
yeah,
you cast the bucket down into the well and just hope that water comes up, right? But you do have to, in the book, it makes a point to say that you do have to actively, like, cast that bucket down the well for the water to continue to flow, right? Like in actuality, in real life, like if you don't use a well, it will dry up. So the fact that there has to be that relationship with that darkness or that unknown parts of ourselves, or the parts of ourselves that we've cast down the well, that we've thrown to the bottom, but that you pull water up from that well, and that water, like, water is vital. You need water to survive. Like, and the symbology that even comes from that, like, going down to the bottom of the well is dark. It's moist. It's also fertile, grounds for change and grounds for, you know, a new opportunity to embrace the parts of yourselves that you have thrown down that well. And can you come back from that a changed person, or like a more whole, I guess, person, because you've accepted that there are parts of yourself that you need.
I'll just finish with, but I'll read this little thing that I had wrote down just for my own, like, understanding after everything that I had read the other night. So I just said, justice is being with all of what is, understanding our motives for change when it is change that we seek. The world is unfair, at times unjust, and there is a lack of control that we have over our physical existence, meaning that bad things will happen. We will experience grief, trauma, deep sorrow, regret, etc. But there is importance in accepting these feelings and really being with them to achieve some level of equilibrium that we see in the justice card. And experiencing that, being with that, allows us to fully choose how we respond moving forward. And then just from the Lindsay Mack book, Tarot for the Wild Soul, she says, being with it all allows for us, paradoxically, to be the most direct agent and advocate for change in our own lives. So there's just, again, highlighting the we have to be with everything. We have to be with it all. No feeling is bad or good. No part of ourselves is bad or good. We have to work to accept it all in order to have change. Mm-hmm.
Well, that feels like a good conclusion.
I think so too.
To this episode of the Justice Card. Thank you so much for listening, and we are excited to bring a couple of different guests on in the next few months. So stay
we're still
tuned
working
for
on the
those.
guests. Mm-hmm.
Yes, just need to coordinate schedules and times. But thanks so much for listening today. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us in today's conversation. We hope this space offered you a spark of meaning, a reminder of your own strength, or simply the comfort of knowing you're not alone in the messy middle of becoming.
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to share it with a friend, subscribe, or leave us a review. It helps this little community grow.
You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Heart on the Table Pod, where we share more reflections, tarot polls, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of the podcast.
Until next time, may you keep noticing the magic woven into your everyday life.
Please remember, while we are both licensed clinicians, this podcast is not therapy and does not create a therapeutic relationship. The conversation's here for educational and reflective purposes only. If you are seeking mental health support, we encourage you to connect with a licensed provider in your area. Thanks for listening.